Hi, welcome to What the Flick. My name is Christy. That is Alonzo. That is Matt. We are deep in the middle of awards season, and Manchester by the Sea is a movie that has been bandied about for a multitude of reasons in awards season discussions. The latest from Kenneth Lonergan, starring Casey Affleck and Michelle Williams. Matt actually will tell us what it's about.
Yes, so Manchester by the Sea is the movie that's going to get Casey Affleck a Best Actor nomination at the Oscars. He plays a custodian of 3 or 4 different buildings in Boston. His brother has passed away. He rushes back to the small town that he's originally from, Manchester. And needs to take care of his nephew, and we get some scenes kind of flashing back to his tragic past where we realize maybe there's a reason he doesn't live in that town anymore, and it's a pretty powerful movie. Let's take a look.
What happened to my brother?
So that's Lee Chandler.
I don't understand.
Which part are you having trouble with?
Well, I can't be his guardian.
Well, your brother provided for your nephew's upkeep. I think the idea was that you would relocate.
Relocate to where?
Well, if you
Here?
look, it was my impression that you'd spent a lot of time here.
Hi, sweetheart. I'm just a backup.
Lee, nobody can appreciate what you've been through. And if you really feel you can't take this on, that's your right.
Yeah, this movie premiered at Sundance to great acclaim. It has been talked about a lot as an award season sort of player. I'm not a fan.
No?
No.
How come?
I find it to be very kind of it felt sort of like half-baked Arthur Miller to me. It felt like this is working class people as written by a New York playwright.
So Barton Fink's story.
Sort of, yeah. And I don't know. I never engaged with it emotionally, and people I know and love and respect love this movie and are moved by it and all that stuff. And I'm just kind of going, didn't do it for me.
I admired it. I liked it in pieces. The thing I took from it was it's an interesting exploration of how men have a hard time communicating with each other. Because over and over again in this film, you have scenes where they're talking over each other, or like there's a phone issue, or they can't quite get through to each other. And I feel like and of course Casey Affleck is completely closed off for reasons that we understand later on. And that, to me, was one thing that he was trying to, I think, explore in ways that were kind of darkly funny and true. I mean, it's beautifully acted. It's got this very rich sense of place. New England, small town, insular New England, we've seen explored in a multitude of films in the past. And they get the accents right. They get the vibe of it right. There's the small town nature of it right. So I like that. Michelle Williams has one lovely, heartbreaking scene toward the end. We talked about flashback structures a lot here. We talked about it with Nocturnal Animals. They use it pretty powerfully here to explain what's going on with Casey Affleck's character. But yeah, I was underwhelmed. Maybe it is hype, right? Hype can be a detrimental thing when it comes to award season. And I admired it a great deal, but was not overwhelmed by it and didn't love it.
You guys are both wrong.
We are both wrong.
You guys are both
Tell us
wrong.
why we're
This
wrong.
movie is fiercely devastating.
Okay, tell
I
me.
found this to be extremely powerful, and it's this great character study of a guy who is totally broken, completely broken, and as we learn why, we get it. And the amazing thing is that there's a level of self-awareness from him. And it's not communicated early on, but now I think that where this movie is going to be challenging for some people is that it's really languid. It takes its time. It takes a long time to get where it's going to get to. But there's a couple of scenes in this. There's a scene between Michelle Williams and Casey Affleck later in the film that is absolutely just floored me. Totally devastating. And then there's a scene between Affleck and the kid that's playing his nephew.
Lucas Hedges. He's very good.
Which I think is almost just as powerful. And I found this to be a really strong movie. There's this, you see this this character who's gone through this terrible tragedy, and you see a lot of the stuff in the flashbacks is you see his brother played by Kyle Chandler, which is a little confusing because the family name is Chandler.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Casey
Affleck's playing
Chandler.
Lee Chandler, and Kyle Chandler is playing Joe Chandler. And it's like, all right, we got it. Did we have to cast a Chandler as a Chandler? Come
He
on.
is good though.
He is very good.
What can't
and
he
so we see Casey Affleck just having, what's interesting is you get two different levels of flashback structure, right? Like you get flashback to a happier time in Affleck's life, and then you get flashback to a later period, but still not where we're at in the present. And you've seen his older brother in the wake of this tragedy trying to bring him back to the world, and somewhat unsuccessfully. And there's something that happens after, because his brother knows that he's got this potential thing happening. It's a surprise that when it's happened, but his brother's diagnosed with something that we get early on in the movie, like, oh, okay, this is something that could happen at any time. And so his brother has set up in his will something that's going to force Affleck's character, force Lee to get back into the world. And you see quietly, without them really explaining it, I feel like you see it pays off where you see early on as his nephew Patrick's like, hey, can I do this? Can I have this girl spend the night? He's like, why are you asking me? Sure. And by the end of the film, like, he's making some choices and he's putting a stab in at parenting. And
I will give the film points for not wrapping things up in a bow. Like, it goes to these dark, tragic places and then doesn't fix everything magically. That's definitely in its favor, and it's a plus for it. But I found, I don't know, maybe it's just me. When a movie involves like a will and a thing and a will that dictates what somebody else has to do, I'm already like, oh, no,
It's
no,
device.
come on. Yeah, that just feels hokey. And then so much of the dialogue, I just didn't buy. They're acting the shit out of this thing, but I just didn't buy these characters. They just felt like these kind of constructs, and I just didn't get as emotionally invested as I needed to be, because this is all about the emotional investment in these characters. I'm dead inside, fine.
Yes.
I know.
You are dead inside.
I'm in the
I
minority. Everybody
these
loves
felt
this
like
movie.
real people to me.
know.
I got to tell you, like, it's one of the things I liked is that there's, when early on there's a scene like, one of the characters, one of Lee's friends, says, "Oh, should I call Randy your ex-wife?" And he's immediately no, and you're thinking, okay, this is going to be some really contentious relationship, and it's not. And there's, what you start to realize is in the wake of the tragedy that's happened with Lee, there are a lot of people in his life that still care about him and care about each other, and there's genuine affection and warmth there, even though Lee's not the only one broken. Like, everybody across this whole family is kind of broken, and Lee is, his ex-wife is, Joe's ex-wife is,
The nephew.
Like, and they're all, I got a real sense that they're all just trying to get through this the best they can to varying degrees. And I think, the constant drinking, I think one of the things this movie does really well is the constant level of drinking aggravates everything in everyone's life. And I think that that's where this movie really shines through. I mean, if anything, like, this movie is almost a subtle way to, like, you get somebody, somebody who's got a drinking problem, send him to this movie and see how drinking.
Right, they're
like,
trying to numb themselves.
Yeah,
They're
well,
trying to numb themselves.
with alcohol or with evangelical Christianity.
Well,
We also
yeah,
get the Matthew Broderick character.
All right, I totally forgot until just now that Matthew Broderick's in it. Yeah, the Gretchen Mol, Matthew Broderick.
And I
that's
think
a whole
this
weird
movie,
interlude, yeah.
I think this movie kind of does a good job of showing how they are trying to numb themselves out with that, and there's a acknowledgement of that from some of the characters, and it shows how it doesn't really work for them all that well, and they're still just trying it, and they'll make decisions because they know that they're handicapped. And I was really impressed with this movie. I think this is a hell of a film.
I hear what you're saying, and I agree with a lot of it, but I did not love this movie. I wasn't as wowed by it as you are. I'm also not a huge fan of his. Like, I like You Can Count on Me. Did not love Margaret. Margaret's so divisive.
I did not love the theatrical Margaret, and I keep meaning to make myself watch the director's cut of Margaret, but it's kind of like, here's those Brussels sprouts you hated. Now here's a double portion of them.
Here's 3.5 hours.
It's been hard to sit down to make myself do that, but I got to do that.
Yes. All right. So my number is really. I guess I'm gonna say 7.
Are you gonna chicken out now?
Yeah, I said 7.5 at first. No, because I'm realizing what I'm saying.
You're going down.
you're
What
going
I'm
down.
saying in this
Boo.
number are
Good.
not. No, because look,
You're too low.
What I said is not 7.5 number.
So
You
7.
said 6.2.
I said 6.2. I'm sticking to
I'm
it.
saying 7.
All right.
I'm going lower. So do
right.
that for me, please.
I'm going 9.5.
Matt liked it a lot.
All right, so we're a 7.2.
All right, so it's at 98%.
98.
Good Lord,
Exactly.
you people are sheep.
No, look, I acknowledge this is a
Lumps
movie that,
of coal.
This is a movie that
Lumps
is
of
speaking
coal.
to people, and it's just not speaking to me. So
I like alcoholics
Heartless.
from Boston. I do. But however, all right,
Heartless.
bye. Thanks. Bye.
Heartless.